Welcome back to Mind the Gap, the podcast that explores the space between who we are and who we want to be, guided by ancient wisdom, modern psychology, and the quiet voice of emotional intelligence. In today's episode, we're stepping into the world of workplace boundaries. Ever found yourself carrying someone else's task, deadline, or drama without even being asked? There's a fine line between being delegated to and being dumped on. And sometimes the monkey on your back isn't yours to feed. With insight from the Stoics, leadership thinkers, and real life stories, this episode will help you spot the signs, stand your ground, and protect your most valuable asset, your time. So take a breath, hold your boundary, and get ready to draw the line. Here's Michael.
It was Thursday afternoon, and a friend of mine, let's call her Claire, was standing in the office kitchen, halfway through a cup of lukewarm coffee and trying to avoid the blinking light on her inbox. As she told me later, a colleague walked in and, with the casual smoothness of someone who's clearly done this before, dropped a file beside her mug.
Hey, could you just take a quick look at this? You're great at fixing things.
Before she could answer, before she could even say no, they were gone. Minutes later, she found herself knee-deep in a problem she didn't create, in a process she didn't own, and with a deadline that wasn't hers. But there she was, solving someone else's crisis again. And that's what I want to talk about today. That moment, so familiar to many of us, when we find ourselves doing something we didn't agree to, weren't possibly trained for, and didn't have time for. There's a fine line between being trusted and being taken for granted, between responsibility and exploitation, between being delegated to or being dumped on. Let's draw that line more clearly today, with help from the Stoics, a few modern philosophers, emotional intelligence researchers, and a classic article from the Harvard Business Review entitled "Who's Got the Monkey?" by William Onken Jr. and Donald L. Walsh. The article has become legendary in leadership circles because it nails this exact problem. The authors use the metaphor of the monkey to represent a task or responsibility. The monkey starts on someone else's back, but in the process of a vague and overly helpful interaction, it ends up on yours. You might think you're being helpful, but suddenly you're the one feeding the monkey, grooming the monkey, checking on its well-being. And meanwhile, the person who gave it to you is free to walk away. The article is clear. Managers and colleagues must resist the temptation to accept monkeys that don't belong to them. It's about keeping responsibilities where they should be and empowering others to solve their own problems. Let's be honest, we've all taken a monkey or two in our time. It can feel noble, even virtuous. But over time, it corrodes your clarity. You become the go-to problem solver for everyone but yourself. And that's when resentment sets in. What started as helpfulness turns into burnout. Epictetus once said,
"If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation."
That's a tough pill to swallow. But in this context, it means if you constantly feel overwhelmed by other people's tasks, it might be because you haven't drawn the boundary clearly enough. Maybe you've said yes too easily. Maybe you've stayed silent too long. Maybe you've confused helpfulness with obligation. And Marcus Aurelius, wise as ever, reminds us,
"If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it."
When we're handed a task that doesn't belong to us, one that doesn't serve our purpose, our role, or even our conscience, it's worth pausing. Because your time and energy are not infinite. They're your most valuable assets. Seneca, in his usual crisp tone, cuts right to the core.
It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it.
So much of what we call a workload is someone else's load, passed on under the banner of teamwork or urgency. And sometimes it's not even urgent, it's just convenient for them. Let's ground this in the modern world with Stephen Covey, author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, who said,
The key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities.
that's what good delegation should support, your actual priorities, not just what's loudest or latest. Greg McKeown, in his book Essentialism, puts it even more bluntly.
If you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. And that someone else may be lovely. They may say, "You're great at this," or "Can you just take a quick look?" But the result is often the same. You end up carrying something that was never yours to carry.
Here's a simple test. Delegation is thoughtful. It comes with clear expectations. It aligns with your role. It shows trust. Dumping, on the other hand, is vague. It's often rushed. It sidesteps accountability, and it usually comes with a faint whiff of guilt if you dare to say no. It leaves you feeling used, not valued. Think of the phrase, "Can you just?" That word "just" is a clue. It minimalizes the effort while maximizing the guilt. Watch out for it. Let's bring in the lens of emotional intelligence now. One of the core competencies is self-awareness. Start there. What's your gut feeling when the request lands? Are you energized by it? Do you feel trusted? Or do you feel cornered? That's your first signal. The second skill is assertiveness, not aggression, but clarity. You don't have to bark to hold a boundary. You can say things like, "I'd love to help, but let me see where this fits," or "This isn't something I can take on right now," or even, "I'm not the best person for this, and I'd rather not do it badly." Empathy, of course, matters too, but empathy without boundaries turns into self-neglect. Feeling for someone doesn't mean fixing everything for them. As Brené Brown wisely puts it,
empathy has no script. There is no right way or wrong way to do it. It's simply listening, holding space, withholding judgment, emotionally connecting, and communicating that incredibly healing message of "you're not alone." And nowhere in that definition does it say, "and then do all their work for them."
sometimes all it takes is a simple sentence to draw that line kindly. Something like, "Let me check what I'm working on and get back to you." Who else might be better placed to handle this? Or I can offer 10 minutes of advice, but I won't be able to take it on. They aren't refusals. They're recalibrations. They set the tone for future interactions. They train others to think more carefully before handling you a monkey. And remember this, delegation is a sign of trust. Dumping is a misuse of that trust. Often the only thing standing between the two is your response. The pause you take, the breath you draw, the sentence you choose. As the Stoics remind us, our energy is ours to guard. Our time is sacred, and boundaries, though they may feel uncomfortable in the moment, are acts of respect. Not just for yourself, but for the system and the people you serve. When you say no with grace, you model something rare and powerful, a person who knows what they're responsible for, and who honours that responsibility without overreaching. So, the next time someone hands you a task, especially in that smooth, casual way, pause. Ask yourself, is this mine to carry, or am I just the nearest available shoulder? Because the gap between delegation and dumping isn't theoretical. It's emotional, it's energetic, and it's deeply human. Until next time, mind the gap and watch out for the monkeys.
So the next time you feel that gentle nudge or sometimes that not so gentle shove toward picking up a task that isn't really yours, pause. Ask the question, is this mine to carry? And if the answer is no, let it go. Kindness and clarity can live in the same sentence. Boundaries, after all, aren't about pushing others away. They're about keeping your own center intact. Now, in our next episode, we'll be doing something a little different, taking a moment to look back and gather some of the best ideas, reflections, and quotes from the journey so far. 32 episodes of insight, challenge, and perspective. Whether you've been with me from the start or you're just tuning in, it's a great chance to revisit the core themes that keep showing up in our conversations: wisdom, awareness, and the space between reaction and response. Until then, mind the gap and honor the edges of your own time, your own truth, and your own energy. Talk next week.